Welcome to New Possibilities. I speak truth to power without fear. So, yesterday I was watching a video, a very disturbing video of a shooting in Chicago. So, there was this woman who was driving in a car, listening to music. A 26-year-old man was also in the car, and a 2-year-old boy was in the car. While they're driving along, enjoying themselves, having fun, all of a sudden, gunshots rang out. The 2-year-old boy is shot in the head and killed. The 26-year-old man is shot in the head and killed. And as the shots were ringing out, the woman ran out of the car. She was hit as well. Fortunately, she survived, and she's 4 months pregnant. You know, at the time of the shooting, this woman was 4 months pregnant, and fortunately, the baby will survive. You know, her unborn baby will survive, at least according to news reports, and she will survive her injuries as well. But this is yet another example of the violence that is plaguing not only Chicago, but plaguing the nation. In Chicago, before this shooting, 2 other young people were shot. 2 preteen girls were shot, and one of them was shot in the head and killed. And I believe the other one was shot in the head as well, but remains in critical condition. But this speaks to a major problem that is occurring in our communities. This endless cycle of violence. And this violence in Chicago is really out of hand. I mean, it's gotten to the point of being a national catastrophe, and something really needs to be done about it. Not just on the local level. This is something that needs to have some kind of federal government involvement. Now, as I've said in prior videos, I don't support bringing in the National Guard or anything like that, but I think that resources need to be brought into these kinds of communities. You have a situation where people don't have educational opportunities. They go to failing schools. You have impoverished communities where people don't have access to jobs or opportunity. In that kind of environment that is saturated with drugs and guns, is an explosive environment. And because of that explosive environment, you see incidents like this, incidents of violence, where not only are these gang members caught up in the violence, often it's the children, the innocent children that are caught up in this cycle of violence. Those 2 girls that I mentioned before, they were shot by stray bullets. And in this recent example that I cited, this is another gang-style shooting. Apparently, the 26-year-old who was in that car was a member of a gang. He was a known gang member. He was the target of that shooting. But innocent people got caught up in the crossfire. And it makes me think about several things. So not only is there governmental responsibility in terms of ending this violence, there's a community responsibility. It's our community, and it's our responsibility to take care of these kinds of things. You know, if you were in that gang lifestyle, I mean, there was a point when even gangs had a code of conduct. They would not target babies. They would try to do everything that they could to make sure that innocent people weren't caught up in the crossfire. The innocent women and children were not caught up in the gunfire or in the conflict. But today, these kids who are in these gangs, they don't have any kind of code at all. These people boast about being savages. That's what they call themselves. They think that it is cool to be a quote-unquote savage. And that label savage is appropriate based on the conduct of these people. They have lost any kind of connection as to what it means to be a human being. These people are completely devoid of guidance. They are completely devoid of any kind of knowledge of self. So they have reduced themselves down to an animal type of level. And actually, they're even worse than animals, because animals do what they have to do to survive. You know, they attack prey in order to feed and eat, but these people aren't doing it for that purpose. These people have lost any kind of sense of right and wrong. These people are totally lost, and it's up to our community to address this issue. The community, I'm sure they know who killed those people. I'm sure that some people in the community knows who is responsible for this crime. And it's up to the community to hold these killers accountable. If you take a life, you should be prepared to lose your life. If you take a life, you should be prepared to lose your freedom. And, you know, I hope the community does the right thing and turns these killers in, because they should be brought to justice. And those people who are all about this street code and all this or that about not snitching, if you're really about their life, then, you know, if you're not going to turn these people in to the police, then there should be some street justice. I mean, this type of atrocity is sickening. You know, that you're killing innocent children. I mean, we can't get on here and just complain when police kill us. We can't do that. We have to realize, and I'm sure most of us do realize, the importance of black lives, whether they're taken by police or whether they're taken by these criminals in our community. We have to value our lives. We need to protect our lives, protect the lives of our children by taking control over our communities. We live in a society that glorifies this gang lifestyle, and I think that that is partly to blame for this violence. When you have music glorifying gang life, when you have rap artists glorifying their affiliation with gangs, glorifying being a Crip, glorifying being a Blood, glorifying gangsters and criminals like Big Meech. You know, they shout out the names of these gangsters and criminals who are destroying our community. They glorify the selling of drugs and poison to our community. They glorify guns in our community, the shooting of people. And these record labels promote this foolishness. These record labels promote genocide in the music with the messaging. And if music can be used to motivate people to purchase items, like they use music to advertise goods, to get you to buy things, if music can be used that way, then surely this music is being used to program our people to perpetuate this self-destructive violence in our communities. You can't tell me that there's no correlation between the message that our people are constantly bombarded with that tells them it's cool to kill somebody, that tells them it's cool to be a part of a gang. You can't tell me that there's no connection between that and the violence that plagues our communities. We need to stand up to these record labels and to these companies that promote this violence in our community. That sister C. Dolores Tucker was ahead of her time, and most people like renounced her and, you know, talked about her when all she was doing was trying to combat a problem that promoted, you know, this negativity that plagues our communities. So it's time for us to stand up. And you have groups that protest against the violence, that try to organize against the violence. But if we can march in the streets against police brutality, then we need to take action in our communities as well against this inner city violence that plagues our communities, against these gangs and stuff like that bring drugs into our community, against these drug dealers. If we can march against the police, then we need to be able to march against the drug dealers in our community, march against the gangs in our community. These gangs and drug dealers are a minority in our community, and if the community was organized, they could push these gangs out. If the real men would stand up and do what men do and take charge of these communities, we could end this violence. We could end it.